Man, Broncos country, we got some fortunate or unfortunate news depending on how you're looking at it and what you expected as it pertains to the Broncos reigning defensive player of the year, Pat Surtain. As you guys saw against the Cowboys, he had gone down with what they were deeming a shoulder injury. The way he was rubbing it and the way that it looked like it could have been a pec. A lot of people were worried about a torn pec muscle that would certainly end Patrick Surtain's season. As time went on and you didn't hear any reports, I felt like the longer it went, maybe the better the news was. It didn't seem like there was any vibes or any fear that it was a season ending injury. But we've got a little bit of news now. We're going to break it down. Victory lap was popping, my guy. Hope you're doing good, brother. Unfortunate news, though, man. Unfortunate depending on how you look at it. So, per Adam Schefter, Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain II is expected to be a candidate to be placed on injured reserve due to the pectoral injury he suffered Sunday, as Schultz and them reported. Now, here's the thing where it gets a little bit interesting in terms of what the Broncos are ultimately going to do with Pastor Tan, ultimately, right? And let me just pull up the schedule here because, as we know, man, we need to get a victory lap for you, brother. We do. PS2 injury. It's unfortunate, as we said, but here's the thing about this news, right? So, firstly, I look at it, right? I look at it like it's kind of a positive in a way because I thought it was potentially going to be one of those long-term season enders. Like that would have been tragic for this team. Luckily, we avoided the disastrous type of injury. Pec strains can really vary depending on the grade, right? It seems like it's kind of a grade 2. So you're thinking that 4 to 6 week range is roughly what I'm seeing and what you've kind of looked at based off of other injuries in the past that are similar that have taken place. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But when we look at the Broncos' schedule here, all right. So we know that if Pastor Tan is actually placed on short-term IR, he has to miss 4 games, not 4 weeks, which means he would be guaranteed to be out versus the Texans, the Raiders, the Chiefs, and Washington, right? But if the Broncos feel pretty optimistic that it's going to be around the 4 week range and they can utilize, like they can keep the roster spot for him and they don't have to use it for another player, then they can elect to not put him on short-term IR and hope that he is back for the Washington game after the bye week, because that would be 4 full weeks taken into account the bye week. So I think that's kind of what they're going through in terms of making the decisions. But again, it's also one of those things where you want to make sure he doesn't re-aggravate it. When he comes back 100%. I know he's been dealing with other injuries, so it gives him some time to heal there, looking at it from an optimistic standpoint. Now, the real question is, who's going to step up for this team, right? Who is going to be the guys that are next in line that we know can do their best to replace? You're not going to replace PS2. That's just what it is. So we obviously know that Riley Moss goes from being the highly targeted cornerback 2 opposite of Pastor Tan that he is, to now being the main guy. And from what we've seen last week, it was Kris Abrams-Draine that stepped in on the outside. That could change. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the case moving forward. I think from what we've seen of Kris Abrams-Draine over the course of the last, over the course of the end of last year and in the times that he's played, he's looked really good. He's played there. He's practiced there. He's the most likely candidate to be the replacement there. But guys, this is why you invest a first-round pick in Jahdae Barron, right? You take the best player available, even though it's at a position of strength. It's for times like this to where if you start to get a little bit thin at the cornerback position, you don't want to be put into the same situation you were last year where Levi Wallace is now playing for you, right? And he's just getting absolutely torched. I think we're in a much better position now with Kris Abrams-Draine taking that next step and Jahdae Barron being the first-round pick, who looked really good this last week against the Cowboys. It's going to be very, very interesting. Again, who is it going to be? I think we're definitely going to find out when you ask me, because when you look at this, right, when you look at the depth chart here, you got Kris Abrams-Draine, Jahdae Barron. You don't really have anybody as like the backup there for for Patrick Surtain. Really. So we've always gone with 5 corners. It looks like we're probably going to elevate one, which would be something that would make a lot of sense. But every time you heard Sean Payton talking about the Jahdae Barron, he said the vision for him was that he would be a corner that can play outside and in. So outside first, in second, and then also be able to have a little bit of that versatility. So he's always viewed him as being a true outside corner. Now, why has he not really played outside? Why has he played mainly in the slot? Well, maybe that's just an area that they really want to make sure that he's very comfortable and he's good at playing because they know his ability outside. And they also know that you're not going to get as many opportunities playing on the outside as you are in the slot. You can have 2 slot corners, but you're rarely going to, you're not going to bench Riley or Pat Surtain to be able to play him. So that could be a big part of it. But it could be that that their plan is to play Jahdae Barron outside, or at least give Kris Abrams-Draine the start, but mix Jahdae in depending on how they deem fit. You got a great nickel in Jaquan McMillan. He can hold that down if needed. Kris Abrams-Draine also gives you versatility of playing inside and outside. So I think you mix it up based off of how guys are playing, the opponent that you're playing. But yeah, man, it's going to take a big effort for this entire secondary to step up in the absence of the reigning defensive player of the year. There's no doubt about it. It is the true next man up mentality. And just like Victory Lap says right here, everyone has got to step up. And that's true. Now, guys, in a really weird way, this could actually benefit Riley Moss quite a bit because now he might not get peppered with targets as much as he has been because quarterbacks are going to be a little bit more keen to spreading it out a little more. Like they can go after Riley, but they can go after the other side. They're not just game planning to go after one side, trying to avoid Pat Surtain. So that could help Riley Moss in that sense. So there could be a little bit of an upgrade from him, but you better believe it. There's going to be a lot of guys going after him. We are in kind of if this kind of injury was going to happen, this is arguably the best time for it to happen, if there is a best time, right? Because firstly, you're still in the middle of the season, so you're gonna have him for that very, very important December run, right? When you're talking about the Raiders, a divisional game, Green Bay, Jacksonville, someone you could be competing with for a playoff spot, and then wrapping up the season with Kansas City and Los Angeles Chargers. Those are going to be the most important part of the season. You're expected to have him back by then. So from that standpoint, it's a good thing. Another thing is that the teams that you're going up against, at least your next 2 opponents, right? Houston and Las Vegas Raiders are not the most prolific offenses in the NFL. They have struggled, to say the least. They struggle on the offensive line. Houston's got really good quarterback. I like C.J. Stroud. I think he's solid. He's got some weapons. I mean, Nico Collins is there. Jaden Higgins, I was big on. Jalen Noel. They've got some pass catchers. Don't get it twisted, but definitely not upper tier stuff when it comes to other guys. Obviously, he's going to be very missed against Kansas City. That's going to be a massive game, and he's going to be very missed there. And he's someone that's picked off Patrick Mahomes quite a bit. So that's going to be the really tough one. And then assuming that you're going to miss the Washington game, depending on how the state of their receivers look at that point. I know they've been banged up so far, but, things can change. You got McLaurin and Deebo Samuel and stuff like that, so that they can pose you a problem. But at least 2 of those games, you're not overly concerned. I don't think it's going to sway the outcome of it too much. But again, it's really tough, and it's going to take a village, man. It's going to take a lot of guys to come in and take on different roles and be able to make plays when they're called upon. It's also going to put a little bit more pressure on this pass rush. Right now, these guys got to get there a little bit quicker. One of the big reasons why our pass rush has been so dominant and that we're on pace to break the 85 Bears sack record, and we've been on this historic pace in terms of sacking the quarterback, is because quarterbacks had to hold on to the ball just a tad bit longer due to somebody that's so good like Patrick Surtain. So there's going to be a lot of a trickle-down effect. I'm looking forward to seeing how this team ultimately responds. But yes, it's definitely concerning, and it's definitely unfortunate news for the Broncos overall. So listen, I love me some Kris Abrams-Draine. I do. I think he's plenty capable. I feel like anytime he's gotten an opportunity, all he's done is come in and make plays. He gets his first start last year against the Chargers, makes a huge play intercepting Justin Herbert. So the Duke can make a play. I'm pretty sure he got an interception too in the preseason. But we cannot forget, man, Jahdae Barron was, I thought, the best cornerback in this last year's draft class. We spent the number 20 overall pick on him. He's going to have to step up and play a lot. And if Kris Abrams-Draine is struggling, man, they got to pull the trigger really quickly and put Jahdae in, because that's what you spend these high draft picks to do, man. You do it to get talented players that you feel like can go in and make a difference. And he's someone that definitely is capable of doing that. So again, we will see. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to make the most out of this unfortunate injury, but I'm also grateful that it wasn't worse than I think some people in Broncos country feared. I know a lot of it was speculation, but it was worrisome. It was worrisome. I mean, you'd rather hear shoulder injury than pec, because a lot of the times with those soft tissues, man, they tear, season's over. Shoulders, they could be nagging, they could take a little bit of while, but once they heal, they're good. So not the worst news. Definitely not the worst news that the Broncos could get, but it is, again, unfortunate that it is what it is and that he's going to be missing time. So we're going to dive deeper in this on Horsepower Hour tonight at 8. We'll definitely make sure that we talk about that. So be sure to tune in for our thoughts there. But let's not let it overshadow an absolutely dominant performance that the Broncos had against the Cowboys. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to look ahead to life, at least for the next month, without PS2. But again, I think best case scenario, guys, we can get him to come back after the bye week and avoid putting him on short-term IR. But again, if you need to, if you want to have a roster spot, you don't want to necessarily relegate somebody down, and you feel like you need to have a roster spot open up for a corner that's on your practice squad, which I'm actually going to open it up real quick and see who we got on this practice squad. I know we had some guys that were pretty impressive in the preseason. Obviously, it's preseason. They were all undrafted guys. But, yeah, we got Jaden Robinson. He's someone that kind of popped to me. You got Reese Taylor. And so you could also look elsewhere, bring somebody else back. Maybe there's veterans. Maybe there's somebody NFL free agent cornerbacks. Let's see if there are any available. But most likely it'll be that you're going to elevate one of those guys to bring him in to play. It is crazy, though, because Jaden Robinson is an undrafted guy that we selected this year. Never played in the regular season at all. Reese Taylor, we've had him on the season last year as well. I don't know how much he played, but he's someone that is there and available. So he'd probably be the favorite to jump up and play. But again, you would hope that these guys get elevated, but they're going to play very, very minimally. So we'll see. We will ultimately see. But yeah, you got guys that actually are available quite a bit, actually, on the. Let me pull this up. We got a little bit of fun with this. Yeah, you're right. I kind of misspoke. I mean, shoulder injuries definitely linger. I had one once too, but these guys get so much treatment constantly, and they're always working out these muscle groups, and it's one of those things, like once they get over that hump, they tend to be able to at least deal with it a little bit better. But yeah, they can certainly linger, but at least they can go out there and play on it to an extent. And it's a little bit more understandable in terms of the type of injury. So, but let me put this up here. You can take a little look on some of the guys that are available, right? And the trade market's coming up soon, man. So there might be some guys that you can go ahead and ultimately trade for. But, any of these upper tier, like older guys could make sense. I mean, if they're just going to be a depth piece. But it would make even more sense if you went down and looked at some of the lower end guys that maybe you're familiar with, you have a little bit of background history with, or a little bit cheaper, but that have still had experience and played. So it'll be interesting to see if we look at the waiver wire, or if we look at other teams' practice squads to make the elevation, rather than going after some of the undrafted guys that have no experience at all. So we'll see. we'll see. But like Stephon Gilmore, yeah, he's 35 years old, but shoot, he could be a really good fill-in back end of the roster guy. Kendall Fuller, James Bradbury, or some guys, Jordan Poyer, that can make sense. Asante Samuel Jr., I feel like there was some injury with him that's lingered. They probably kicked the tires to see where he's at, but I remember it was some injury with him because he's shown flashes of being pretty decent. But again, we'll get some more information for sure in the coming days. I'm guessing by tomorrow we'll at least make an initial move, and we'll see. It could also be another position where the Broncos field some calls before the trade deadline and end up getting a young player that they not only could utilize during this absence, but also can find some value in him moving forward. So we'll see. But hey, everybody was hating on the Jahdae Barron pick. People were wanting an instant turnaround and an instant return on the investment. Well, unfortunately, but fortunately, I guess for him, and maybe we can get our question answered a little bit faster. Here we are. He's going to be pushed into a prominent role, and I'm looking forward to it, man. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to wrap this up here and see y'all in a couple hours on Horsepower Hour, man. Go Broncos, baby. Peace.